The Xal'thari Empire had conquered 47 star systems. Their military algorithms were perfect. Their Jianlu simulations never failed. They studied every species before first contact, and then they studied humans. They analyzed our wars, World War II, Vietnam, the Gulf conflicts. They watched footage of Normandy beach landings and drone strikes in the desert. They catalogued every tactic, every formation, every strategic doctrine. The Xal'thari were ready. Or so they thought. Because their researchers made one critical mistake. They only studied human soldiers. They studied discipline, training, military doctrine. They never studied a 3-year-old who missed nap time. This is the story of how humanity's greatest strategic advantage wasn't our technology. It wasn't our weapons or our military genius. It was chaos. Pure, unreasonable, irrational chaos. The kind of chaos that makes a toddler throw spaghetti at the wall because the noodles looked at them wrong. The kind of logic that says crying louder will definitely change the laws of physics. The Xal'thari had quantum computers that could predict fleet movements 3 months in advance. They had AI systems that analyzed millions of combat scenarios per second. But nothing in their databases prepared them for a small human named Emma. Age, 3 years and 4 months. Crimes against logic, countless. Tactical predictability, 0. Strategic coherence, non-existent. She would become the most studied subject in Xal'thari military history. She would shatter every algorithm they'd built. She would force their greatest minds to question the very foundations of reason itself. And she would do it all because someone told her she couldn't have cookies for breakfast. This is that story. The war room stretched 300 meters beneath the surface of Xal'thar Prime. Admiral Xal'thari stood before a holographic display the size of a building. Around her, 200 of the Empire's finest tactical minds worked in perfect silence. They had been studying Earth for 4 cycles. 4 cycles of analysis, pattern recognition, behavioral modeling. They had watched thousands of hours of human warfare. They had dissected every major conflict from the Bronze Age to the modern era. Their conclusion was unanimous. Humans are predictable, Xal'thari announced to the assembly. Remarkably so. The hologram shifted. It showed heat maps of human troop movements, statistical models of decision trees, probability matrices that glowed with confident green indicators. They follow clear patterns, she continued. Hierarchical command structures, supply chain dependencies, risk-averse leadership in peacetime, aggressive expansion during resource scarcity. A junior analyst raised a sensory appendage. What about their capacity for irregular warfare, the guerrilla tactics? Xal'thari's equivalent of a smile appeared. Already accounted for, human insurgencies follow predictable emotional triggers. Fear, anger, patriotism. We can model these with 94% accuracy. The war room hummed with approval. They had cracked humanity. Begin preparation for first contact protocols, Xal'thari ordered. Diplomatic approach first, but ready the fleet. If negotiations fail, we move to subjugation within 6 planetary rotations. That's when Sub-Commander Krill spoke up. Admiral, there's one data set we haven't fully analyzed. Xal'thari turned. Explain. The human civilian population, specifically. Krill pulled up a new hologram. Their offspring, the immature ones they call children. Irrelevant, Xal'thari said flatly. Children are pre-operational units. They have no bearing on military capacity. But Admiral, I noticed something strange in the cultural databases. Humans have an expression. They say raising their young is harder than war. Scattered amusement rippled through the war room. Clearly hyperbole, another analyst chimed in. Emotional creatures exaggerating domestic challenges. Xal'thari waved a dismissive appendage. Focus on military-age humans. That's where the threat lies. Children are merely— She searched for the word. Data noise. Krill hesitated but nodded. The meeting continued for 3 more hours. They refined invasion vectors. They calculated optimal negotiation pressure points. They built a model so comprehensive it could predict human military response to 16 different first contact scenarios. What they didn't know was that 8,000 light-years away, a small human named Emma was about to wake up. And she was going to have feelings about her breakfast options. Feelings that would echo across the galaxy. Because while the Xal'thari had studied Patton and Rommel, Sun Tzu and Napoleon, they had never encountered a strategic philosophy that could be summarized as, "I want it, and I want it now, and if you say no, I will scream until reality breaks." The Xal'thari military doctrine was built on 3 pillars: logic, predictability, and rational self-interest. Emma's doctrine was built on 1 pillar: chaos, and chaos, as the universe knows, always wins. Not because it's stronger, but because it doesn't play by rules. It doesn't even know there are rules. The Xal'thari were about to learn this lesson, and it would cost them everything. The Xal'thari research station hung in the dark space beyond Neptune. They'd been observing Earth for 2 months now, not just military installations, everything, cities, homes, daily life. They needed complete cultural understanding before first contact. Dr. Xal'thari headed the Civilian Observation Division. His job was to analyze human social structures, find weaknesses, identify pressure points. He was good at his job. But today, something was bothering him. "Run that footage again," he told his assistant. The hologram displayed a human dwelling. Standard suburban home. 2 adult humans, 1 small human. The small human was crying. "What's the tactical significance?" his assistant asked. "I don't know yet," Xal'thari murmured. "But look at the adult human's response." On screen, the human parents were trying various approaches, offering food, picking up the small human, speaking in soothing tones. Nothing worked. The crying intensified. "Increase volume analysis," Xal'thari ordered. The computer complied. The crying measured at 95 decibels, louder than some human industrial equipment. "What's causing this distress?" Xal'thari wondered aloud. His computer ran behavioral analysis. Reviewing context, the small human was denied access to a sweet nutritional item before the morning meal. "So it's hungry?" "Negative. It was offered appropriate nutrition. It rejected this in favor of the sweet item exclusively." Xal'thari's sensory stalks twitched. "So it's operating against its own survival interest?" "Affirmative." "Fascinating. Does this represent a common behavior pattern?" His assistant pulled up more data. Thousands of hours of footage, all showing similar scenarios. Small humans crying over, incorrect colored drinking vessels, foods touching each other on plates, footwear placed on incorrect feet, the shape of sandwich cuts, the existence of rain, the non-existence of rain, invisible entities they called the wrong way. "This makes no sense," Xal'thari said slowly. "These are not threats. These are not resource shortages. These are," he struggled with the concept, "arbitrary preferences about irrelevant variables." "Should we flag this for the military division?" his assistant asked. Xal'thari considered it, then dismissed the idea. "No, these are just defective units, immature brains still developing. By the time these humans reach military age, they'll have outgrown this irrational behavior." It was a logical conclusion. It was also completely wrong. Because what Xal'thari didn't understand was that the chaos never leaves. It just gets better at hiding. It waits. It lurks beneath every human smile and rational conversation. And when stressed enough, it emerges. That's what makes humans dangerous. They're not predators who are always aggressive. They're not cold, logical machines. They're beings of pure chaos who learn to pretend they're civilized. The military discipline the Xal'thari studied so carefully. That's just chaos in a uniform, rules and regulations wrapped around a screaming toddler brain that never fully went away. Every human adult is just a 3-year-old who learned to use words instead of tantrums. Most of the time. Back on Earth, Emma was waking up. Her father approached her room with coffee in hand, ready for another day. "Good morning, sweetie," he said cheerfully. "How about some pancakes for breakfast?" Emma looked at him with eyes that had seen beyond the veil of reason. "I want cookies," she said. "How about pancakes and then maybe a cookie after lunch?" Emma's eyes narrowed. The Xal'thari sensors in orbit registered a temperature increase in the household. They classified it as minor thermal anomaly. They were wrong. It was the beginning of something far worse. Emma took a breath, not a normal breath, the kind of breath that pulls air from the bottom of the lungs, the kind that prepares the body for sustained high-decibel output. Her father recognized it immediately. "Emma, let's talk about—" "Cookies!" Emma screamed. "Cookies! Cookies! Cookies!" In orbit, the Xal'thari sensors registered the acoustic event. "Unusual vocalization detected," the monitoring AI reported. "Volume, 98 decibels. Duration, sustained. Emotional content, maximum." Dr. Xal'thari was pulled from his sleep cycle. "What's the situation?" he asked groggily. "The small human designated Emma 47 has entered a state of extreme distress. Cause? Denied access to sweet nutritional items." Xal'thari sighed. "Again? These humans and their food preferences. Monitor, but don't flag for priority analysis." Back on Earth, things were escalating. Emma had progressed beyond screaming. She had entered what her parents called the full meltdown protocol. Phase 1. Vocal assault. She screamed, but not randomly. She screamed words in combinations that defied logic. "I want cookies for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and yesterday." Her father blinked. "Yesterday?" "Yes, go back to yesterday and give me cookies." "Sweetie, I can't travel through time." Emma's face turned red. "Then you're not trying hard enough." In orbit, Xal'thari was now paying attention. "Run analysis on that statement," he ordered. "Did the small human just demand temporal manipulation?" "Affirmative. It appears to believe time travel is a reasonable parental responsibility." "But that's—" Xal'thari's sensory stalks drooped. "That's not how causality works." Phase 2. Physical chaos. Emma threw herself on the floor. Not gracefully. She dropped like a sack of potatoes and began what humans call the worm, a full-body thrashing motion that serves no survival purpose whatsoever. She kicked, she flailed, she moved across the floor through pure tantrum momentum. "Motion pattern analysis," Xal'thari requested. "Completely erratic. No predictable trajectory. Movement serves no tactical purpose. Energy expenditure is wildly inefficient." "Then why is she doing it?" The computer paused. "Unknown. Behavior does not fit any survival model in our database." Emma's mother entered the room. She was a military veteran. Combat experience in 2 theaters, decorated for tactical excellence. She took one look at Emma and retreated. "Nope," she said. "This one's yours." Her husband stared. "You fought in actual combat." "Yeah, and combat makes sense. There are rules, objectives, logic." She gestured at Emma, who was now spinning in circles while crying. That's chaos in its purest form. I choose life." She left. In orbit, Admiral Xal'thari was now watching the live feed. "Dr. Xal'thari, explain this behavior." I cannot, Admiral. By all metrics, the small human should be exhausting itself, should be responding to rational negotiation, should be— "It's been 17 minutes, Xal'thari interrupted. "How does it have this much energy?" "Unknown." Phase 3. Reality denial. Emma stopped spinning. She looked at her father with tear-filled eyes. "Daddy," she said in a suddenly calm voice, "I changed my mind. I want pancakes." Relief flooded her father's face. "Oh, thank goodness. Okay, sweetie, I'll—" "Chocolate chip pancakes, with ice cream, and cookies on top, and candy, and more cookies." "Emma, that's just cookies with extra steps." Emma's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. The sensors in orbit registered what was coming. "Admiral," Xal'thari said quietly, "I recommend we increase monitoring resources." "Why?" "Because I believe we're about to witness an escalation. It's just a small human having an emotional response." "Admiral, with respect, I don't think we understand what we're dealing with." Emma began to scream again, and this time she wouldn't stop for 45 minutes. The Xal'thari observation station went into crisis mode. Not because of a military threat, not because of a meteor strike or system failure, because they couldn't explain Emma. Dr. Xal'thari stood before a holographic display showing real-time data streams, biometric readings, acoustic analysis, energy expenditure calculations. None of it made sense. "She's been crying for 38 minutes, he said to his team. "Continuously. Her energy output should have depleted 17 minutes ago." "Perhaps she's accessing emergency reserves," an assistant suggested. "For what purpose? There's no predator, no immediate threat. The adult humans have offered food, comfort, and alternative solutions. By every rational measure, this conflict should have resolved." Admiral Xal'thari's hologram appeared in the room. "Doctor, I need an explanation. Now. We're 8 days from first contact, and you're telling me you can't predict the behavior of a child." Xal'thari's sensory stalks quivered. "Admiral, this isn't just unpredictable. It's impossible. Watch this." He pulled up a replay from 10 minutes earlier. Emma's father had finally broken. He'd offered cookies for breakfast. Total surrender. Complete capitulation. Emma stared at the offered cookies, then screamed louder, "These are the wrong cookies." "She has 3 types of cookies in front of her," Xal'thari explained. "All sweet, all meeting her stated criteria, but she's rejecting them because—" he checked his notes, "because they're too round." "Too round," Xal'thari repeated. "Affirmative. She now wants square cookies, which don't exist in the household." The adult human explained this. Emma's response was to demand he make them square by cutting them with a knife. "That's actually logical," Xal'thari said. "Yes, but when he attempted to do so, Emma cried harder because, and I quote, 'That's not how square cookies are made.' She insists they must be baked square." Silence filled the observation station. "So she wants square cookies," Xal'thari said slowly, "but won't accept round cookies cut into squares because they must be naturally square." "Correct. Even though the end result is geometrically identical." "Correct. And she believes this strongly enough to continue crying for—" Xal'thari checked the timestamp. 41 minutes now." "Correct." Xal'thari felt something she'd never experienced in 3 decades of military service. Genuine fear. Not of weapons, not of enemy tactics, but of a logic so alien, so fundamentally wrong, that her entire understanding of strategy felt inadequate. "Run a tactical simulation," she ordered. "Model a battlefield scenario where enemy combatants exhibit this same pattern." The computers went to work. The simulation appeared on screen. Xal'thari, forces versus human forces, but these humans weren't following military doctrine. They were following toddler logic. The Xal'thari fleet established a blockade. The humans, instead of calculating optimal breakthrough points, simply charged the strongest fortified position because we want to go that way. When asked to surrender, they refused. Not for tactical reasons, but because they didn't want to. When offered better terms, they got angrier. Because the new terms weren't the old terms, and you already said the other thing. The simulation ran for 3 minutes before crashing. Computer, Xal'thari said carefully. Why did you terminate? Unable to predict outcomes. Human behavior violates causality in 7 different ways. Logic matrices experiencing cascade failure. Requesting shutdown to prevent permanent damage. Xal'thari looked at Xal'thari. Admiral, I don't think we can invade Earth. Because of their military? No, because we can't model chaos. Our entire strategic advantage is prediction, pattern recognition, but humans, they're not irrational. They're something worse. What's worse than irrational? Xal'thari pulled up Emma's feed again. She was now crying because her tears were too wet. They're arbitrary, he whispered. They can change the rules mid-engagement for reasons that don't exist. They can want contradictory things simultaneously. They can reject solutions to problems they created, and they'll do it all with absolute conviction. On screen, Emma had reached minute 45. She showed no signs of stopping. Admiral Xal'thari refused to accept defeat from a 3-year-old. Load Emma's behavior patterns into the military simulator, she ordered. I want to see if our forces can adapt. Dr. Xal'thari looked horrified. Admiral, I strongly advise against... That's an order, Doctor. 30 minutes later, the Xal'thari High Command assembled in the war room. This was their finest strategic simulation system. It had successfully modeled every military conflict in known space. It could process 8 billion variables simultaneously. It had never lost a simulation. Initialize program, Xal'thari commanded. Scenario, planetary invasion of Earth. Enemy forces commanded by... She paused. Human juvenile Emma 47. The system hummed to life. The holographic display showed the Xal'thari Armada approaching Earth. 300 ships, overwhelming firepower, standard invasion formation. General Krax, their tactical genius, commanded the simulated fleet. All ships, maintain formation, Delta 7. Krax ordered. Prepare to establish orbit and issue surrender ultimatum. The Earth forces appeared on screen. They were scattered. No formation. Ships pointing in random directions. They're in complete disarray, Krax said confidently. This will be... The Earth forces attacked, but not strategically. They just went. All of them. All at once. In completely different directions. Evasive maneuvers, Krax shouted. But there was nothing to evade from. The humans weren't aiming. They were just moving chaotically. And somehow, this made them impossible to target. The Xal'thari computers tried to calculate firing solutions. Error. 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 Why can't we lock on? Krax demanded. Because they're not going anywhere, the tactical officer reported. They're just moving, randomly, with no objective. One human ship flew directly at a Xal'thari dreadnought. Then, at the last second, turned around. Not for tactical reasons. The ship's communication channel opened. We changed our mind, the human captain said. We want to go the other way now. Which way? Krax asked. The other way. Can you specify coordinates? The other way. The human ship began spinning in circles. Not that way, not that way, not that way, the other way. Krax looked at his tactical officer. Is this a psychological warfare technique? Unknown, sir. The simulation continued. Krax attempted negotiation. Human vessels, we offer favorable surrender terms. Withdraw now and... No. No. Can you clarify your strategic reasoning? Because no. That's not a reason. The human fleet somehow got angrier. Ships began ramming Xal'thari vessels, not in tactical strike points, just ramming them because we want to. Computer, analyze their strategy, Krax ordered. Unable to identify strategy, behavior pattern matches, chaos theory, random number generation, and documented footage of toddler meltdown. Then things got worse. One human ship stopped fighting entirely. Human vessel, why have you ceased hostilities? Krax asked. We're sad now. About what? Just sad. Everything is sad. The stars are sad. Space is sad. That asteroid looks sad. So you're surrendering? No, we're sad. That's different. The ship began crying. Actual tears somehow leaked from the hull into space where they immediately froze. Another human ship saw this and also started crying. Why are you crying? Krax demanded. Because they're crying. Soon, half the human fleet was crying for no reason. The other half was aggressively attacking anything nearby, including each other, and the Xal'thari forces had no idea how to respond. Krax did what any rational commander would do. He fell back, regrouped, and attempted a flanking maneuver. The humans didn't notice. They were now arguing with each other about whether space was purple or dark purple. The argument turned into a civil war. The Xal'thari fleet watched in horror as the humans destroyed more of their own ships than the enemy had. Then, suddenly, they stopped. A single transmission came through. We want snacks now. Do you have snacks? What? Krax sputtered. We're in the middle of... Snacks. The simulation froze, then crashed. Total system failure. In the war room, Admiral Vexithora stared at the blank hologram. Run it again, she said quietly. They ran it 17 more times. The Xal'thari lost every single one. Emma had been crying for 90 minutes. Her parents had tried everything: cookies, candy, toys, cartoons, bribery, negotiation, pleading, reason, unreason. Nothing worked. Emma, her mother said, exhausted. Please, tell us what you want. Emma looked up with tear-streaked eyes. I want... She gasped between sobs. I want the thing. What thing? The thing. Can you describe it? Emma thought hard. Her face scrunched in concentration. It's... I don't know, but I want it. Her father collapsed onto the couch. In orbit, the entire Xal'thari Research Division was watching. Dr. Xal'thari had given up trying to analyze the situation. He was just witnessing now, documenting humanity's true nature. She wants something she can't describe, he said numbly. Something that may not exist, but she wants it with the intensity of a supernova. Admiral Vexithora had been watching for the past hour. Doctor, I need you to be completely honest with me. Are all human children like this? Thexler pulled up statistical data from thousands of hours of observation. Not all the time, Admiral, but yes. Every human child exhibits this behavior pattern, and here's what troubles me most. He pulled up new data. Brain scans, psychological profiles. This behavior doesn't fully disappear in adults. It just gets suppressed, hidden beneath social conditioning. But in times of stress, he showed footage of adult humans in various situations. A human stuck in traffic, screaming at no one. A human in a store, arguing with a cashier about a coupon. A human on the internet, typing angry messages in all caps about something completely trivial. It's still there, Xal'thari said. The toddler, it never leaves. They just learn to disguise it most of the time. Vexithora felt her world collapse. Everything she knew about strategy was built on the assumption that rational actors made rational choices based on available information. But humans weren't rational actors pretending to be irrational. They were irrational actors pretending to be rational. And the pretense was paper-thin. Back on Earth, Emma had entered a new phase. She stopped crying. Her parents foolishly believed this meant it was over. It wasn't. Emma stood in the middle of the living room, silent, staring at nothing. Emma, her father asked carefully, are you okay? Emma turned to look at him. Her eyes held the weight of ancient chaos. I'm thinking, she said. About what? Everything. Then she began listing grievances, not just from today, from her entire life. Remember when I was 2 and you gave me the blue cup instead of the red cup? Emma, that was over a year ago. I still remember. And the yellow cup incident, and the time you cut my sandwich wrong, and when we went to the park, but it wasn't the right park, and—" She listed 17 separate incidents. Her father hadn't even remembered most of them, but Emma had. She had catalogued every minor injustice, every small disappointment, every moment the universe failed to align with her expectations. And now they were all coming due. In orbit, Admiral Vexus Thora made a decision. "Cancel the invasion," she said. The war room fell silent. "Admiral?" General Crack said carefully. "We've spent 4 cycles preparing. We have overwhelming military superiority. Their weapons can't—" "Their weapons aren't the problem," Vexi Thora interrupted. "It's them, all of them. They're all like this." She gestured at Emma's feed. "Every human is just a tantrum waiting to happen. We can't predict them. We can't negotiate with them. We can't reason with them, because they don't operate on reason." "Then what do they operate on?" Crax asked. Thexilor answered. "Chaos held together by social pressure and caffeine. Remove either variable, and you get—" He pointed at Emma. "That." Emma had now moved on to philosophical complaints. "And why is the sky blue? That's stupid. It should be purple, or green, or rainbow. And why can't I fly? Birds can fly. That's not fair. And why do I have to sleep? Sleep is boring. And why—" Her father put his head in his hands. "Does she ever stop?" Crax asked. "Eventually," Thexilor said. "But we don't know what stops her. Sometimes she just runs out of steam. Other times she gets distracted. And sometimes—" He pulled up footage from earlier observations. "She falls asleep mid-tantrum and wakes up like nothing happened." "That's horrifying," Vexu Thora said. "That's humanity," Thexilor agreed. The Xal'thari High Council convened an emergency session. Admiral Vexu Thora stood before the Council of Elders. Her career hung in the balance. "Let me understand this correctly," Elder Sorthax said slowly. "You're canceling an invasion because of a child. Not just a child, Elder. A symptom. A window into human psychology that we failed to account for." "Explain." Vexi Thora activated a holographic presentation. Months of research compressed into one briefing. We studied human warfare extensively, their tactics, their strategies, their military capabilities, and we concluded they were predictable, beatable, and we were studying the wrong thing. Human military doctrine isn't their natural state. It's a carefully constructed shell around something far more dangerous. She showed footage from the observations. Emma's tantrum, but also adult humans in various states of stress. A human CEO screaming at an intern, a human politician having a meltdown during an interview, a human scientist throwing lab equipment because an experiment failed, a human programmer yelling at a computer screen. Humans are chaos beings who learn to imitate order, Vexi Thora explained. Their military discipline is impressive, yes, but it's a facade, a thin layer of training over an emotional core that operates on pure chaos logic. Surely not all humans. All humans, Elder. We've analyzed thousands of hours of footage. Every human, regardless of age, education, or status, can revert to this state. They call it losing it, having a meltdown, losing their temper. She showed a particularly telling clip. A human diplomat at a peace conference, calm, rational, professional, until someone took his parking spot. The diplomat transformed. Within seconds, he went from discussing trade agreements to screaming about parking spot justice while other diplomats held him back. This human was negotiating multi-planet treaties, Vexu Thora said, and a parking spot reduced him to rage. Elder Sorthax's sensory stalks drooped. "That's concerning." "It's worse than concerning. It means humans are fundamentally unpredictable. In warfare, stress is maximum, and under maximum stress, humans don't become more logical. They become more chaotic." Dr. Thexilor stepped forward. I ran probability simulations. If we invade Earth, here's what happens. Initially, we win. Human military forces are inferior. We take major cities, establish occupation. Then what? Then every human civilian becomes a toddler with access to weapons. They stop following logical resistance patterns. They start doing things that make no tactical sense but are impossible to predict. Suicide attacks, yes, but also bizarre acts of defiance that serve no purpose except to say no. He showed simulation results. Human resistance fighters stealing Xal'thari ships not to use them, but to paint them pink and hide them in warehouses. Human civilians flooding communication channels with nonsense to jam them. Human hackers breaking into military systems just to change all the text to ancient memes. Human children befriending Xal'thari soldiers and then annoying them into mental breakdowns. They don't fight to win, Xal'thari explained. They fight because they don't want to lose. And there's a difference. A rational actor knows when to surrender, but humans, they'll keep fighting long past the point of logical sense. Because losing is not fair, and they want a do-over. Elder Sorthax was silent for a long moment. What do you recommend, Admiral? Peaceful contact only. Trade. Cultural exchange. But never ever try to conquer them, because you can't conquer chaos. You can't defeat illogic with logic. You can't predict the unpredictable. And if we need to defend against them? Xal'thari pulled up one final piece of footage. Emma, finally calm after 2 hours of crying. Her father asked her a simple question. Emma, why did you want cookies so badly? Emma looked confused. I don't like cookies. Her father stared. You what? I don't like cookies, they're too sweet. Then why did you? I just wanted them, Daddy. That's different. In the council chamber, every elder saw the same thing. Terror. Pure, rational terror at something that could want what it didn't want and fight for something it didn't care about. Proposal accepted, Elder Sorthax said. Cancel the invasion. Establish diplomatic protocols instead, and add a note to the human file. What note, Elder? Warn other species. Humans are not what they seem. They're chaos in a meat suit. Approach with extreme caution. Never threaten their young. Never give them ultimatums. And never, ever assume they'll do the logical thing. And the military assessment? Xal'thari asked. Elder Sorthax looked at Emma's frozen image. Threat level, maximum, but not for the reasons we thought. They're not dangerous because they're strong. They're dangerous because they're impossible. The council adjourned. The invasion was cancelled. And somewhere on Earth, Emma asked for dinner. She was offered chicken nuggets. She wanted dinosaur-shaped nuggets. They gave her dinosaur nuggets. She cried because they were the wrong dinosaurs. Her parents didn't even ask which dinosaurs were correct. They had learned some battles cannot be won. 6 months later, the Xal'thari opened formal diplomatic relations with Earth. The first embassy was established in Geneva. Cultural exchanges began. Trade routes opened. Ambassador Xal'thari was assigned as the permanent Xal'thari representative. On his first day, he attended a diplomatic reception. Humans in formal wear, professional, composed, discussing trade agreements and cultural programs. Xal'thari allowed himself to relax slightly. Perhaps the toddler observations were an anomaly. Perhaps adult humans truly were different. Then he met Ambassador Jennifer Chen, brilliant diplomat, 3 advanced degrees, fluent in 7 languages. They discussed fusion technology, medical exchanges, scientific collaboration. Everything was perfectly professional, until the catering staff ran out of coffee. Xal'thari watched in real time as Ambassador Chen's composure cracked. What do you mean there's no more coffee? She said, voice rising. We can make more, Ambassador, the caterer offered. It'll take 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Do you understand what happens in 15 minutes without coffee? The caterer backed away slowly. Thexila felt his sensory stalks retract in fear. The toddler was still there. It had never left. It was just sleeping. Ambassador Chen caught herself, took a breath, smoothed her jacket. "My apologies," she said with forced calm. "That was unprofessional." "It's quite all right," Thexilor managed. But it wasn't all right. He understood now. Every human he would ever meet was Emma. Every negotiation could become a tantrum. Every diplomatic crisis could escalate not because of rational disagreement, but because someone wanted coffee and couldn't have it. That night, Thexilor filed his first official report. "Humans are suitable for alliance," he wrote. "They are creative, resilient, and capable of remarkable achievements. However, be advised, beneath every human's civilized exterior lives a 3-year-old who wants cookies at inappropriate times. Factor this into all diplomatic calculations. Never assume logic will prevail. Always have snacks available. And when they seem most calm, that's when you should worry most. Because calm humans aren't rational humans. They're just humans who haven't been triggered yet. The tantrum is always waiting. And it's always stronger than you expect." Years later, the Xal'thari would share this intelligence with the wider galactic community. It became known as the Emma Principle, the first rule of dealing with humans: respect the chaos. The second rule: never mess with nap time. The third rule: when in doubt, offer cookies. Even if they say they don't want them, especially if they say they don't want them, because with humans, I don't want it just means I haven't figured out why I want it yet. And somewhere on Earth, Emma slept peacefully, dreaming toddler dreams of square cookies and rainbow skies and a universe that made sense, which ironically was the one thing that would never happen. Because humans don't make sense. They never have. They never will. And that's exactly why they'll never be conquered. So there you have it, the day the mighty Xal'thari Empire studied humanity's greatest warriors, analyzed our fiercest battles, and prepared for conquest, only to be defeated by a 3-year-old who wanted cookies. Because humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology, it isn't our military, it isn't even our determination. It's our fundamental unpredictability. We're chaos in fancy clothes, logic with an expiration date, reason held together by coffee and stubbornness. And when you strip away the civilization, what's left is a toddler who wants what they want, when they want it, for reasons that don't exist yet. The aliens never stood a chance. If you enjoyed this story of Emma's accidental victory over alien invasion plans, hit that like button. Subscribe for more HFY content where humanity wins through sheer absurdity. Drop a comment telling me about the most chaotic toddler moment you've witnessed. Because we all know an Emma. Some of us are Emma. And remember, stay chaotic, stay human, and never underestimate the strategic value of a good tantrum. Until next time.